Welcome to the PhenomX and ViviRocks Healthcast, where we discuss all things related to revolutionizing, updating, and upgrading queen aging women's personalized nutrition and fitness and holistic healthcare. We are all about the phenomenal X chromosome. I'm Dr. Colleen Fogarty Draper, CEO and founder of PhenomX Health, and I am here with Michelle Caira, CEO and founder of ViviRocks. So welcome, Michelle.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
I'm so happy that you could join me today. And I thought maybe what we should do is just start out having you tell us what ViviRocks is all about.
Yeah, sure. I was trying to actually think of a succinct way to describe it. And I've decided that ViviRocks is really a personal trainer online. And so if you're not familiar with what a personal trainer does, we cover everything in 3 distinct areas. The first one is fitness. We're very well known for that. So ViviRocks offers workouts, personal training plans, programs, exercise routine techniques. The second area is health, which would be food, nutrition, diet, and helping our clients to, if weight management was something they were interested in, we would look at weight management. And then there's this third area, which the personal comes into play, and that's really about setting goals, helping our client achieve great and healthy habits. For some clients, it could be work-life flow and balance. And it could also be things like return to work strategies if you're postpartum and things like that. So a personal trainer, if you think about these elements, ViviRocks is trying to capture these elements in an online kind of system and at a price point that works for most clients, either free and a small amount each month for them to pay to get access to a personal trainer. Specifically different with Vivi, which is what we're discussing today, is the female physiology and the female journey. So ViviRocks does really concentrate at the moment on the mum chapter in life and also the menopause chapter in life. And we will introduce the puberty chapter at some point as well. So we're honing in and really focusing on what's happening with the female.
It's wonderful. And what I really like about it is that people can use your platform anywhere they are in the world. And I also like that you have a very comfortable, very down-to-earth platform that I think will attract a lot of different kinds of women to work out, because you don't make it too complicated. You explain things really well. And so I'm quite excited for your project, actually, and to watch it grow. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's really important for me that personal training is accessible to everyone. I know some companies look at the UN Sustainable Development Goals and try and just, maybe for marketing and PR, tick some boxes, but genuinely and truly, that's what I do look at as a core area of why does my business exist, and educating my clients how to do their workouts, how to do technique correctly, why they are doing 10 minutes as opposed to 20 minutes is really quite important. And it's important for me to understand who my clients are as well. A busy working mum is not going to have 45 minutes per day to work out. It just doesn't happen. So you've got to meet the client where they are in life. And thanks so much for noticing that.
Yeah, I think that's what really matters, though, is you keep people coming back, so that when you fit it into their schedule. So that's great. So let me start out and just kind of introduce perimenopause and menopause and kind of what's going on in midlife. And then you and I have chosen some health challenges that we can talk about from a fitness and personalized nutrition and even a holistic health perspective going forward. So yeah. I'll describe this, and then you can just add in what you think, what you think I missed. So when I think about perimenopause and menopause, it's actually 2 parts of this adolescent journey for a woman that actually many women get surprised by. So many women, when they're entering into perimenopause, they either don't realize that that's what's happening for them, or they don't want to, because they perceive that as aging and old, and they don't really see it actually for the opportunity it is to actually grow into the second half of your life. So perimenopause is really a time when a woman will start experiencing sometimes more and more side effects related to PMS. So she might just have more pronounced PMS symptoms that she's already had before. Maybe they last longer for her. And then as her menstrual cycle actually changes, then her symptoms will change. So maybe she goes from having, really sore breasts and PMS for 2 weeks to when her cycle is less and less frequent, she starts having maybe some hot flashes or heart palpitations or things like that. And then there's this gradual kind of change over time that occurs during perimenopause. You've got estrogen that's increasing and then kind of decreasing and changing a lot for her, while progesterone is gradually decreasing. And then menopause is really just one day. And then post-menopause, she's got a pretty significant decline in estrogen and progesterone. And then when that is happening, often if she's prone to problems with sleep and heart palpitations and even some mood changes, it might kind of worsen during that time. So we often hear that it's a 10-year journey, but it can be a bit longer because she continues with those symptoms post-menopause. The women that I talk to that are post-menopause, like kind of post all of this change, they said it's a very calming time. So we go through this 10-year trajectory on average. Okay, on average, just like we say, there's a 28-day menstrual cycle. That's just an average time frame. And then as we go farther and farther away from menopause, there is kind of a calming, a knowing, a wisdom that comes with this. Yeah. However, we earn that. Many women earn that and have to go through this time period of unexpected change. So that's really what we're talking about today. And of course, that's what PhenomX Health is all about, because we're really focused on precision nutrition to help women get through this, the symptoms and the aging changes that occur over this time period and beyond, so beyond menopause. So with that in mind, we've identified some health challenges that women face in midlife during this time. So we're going to go through each of these challenges and talk about the problem, talk about the fitness solution, talk about the holistic health and nutrition. All right. So let's start let's start with fatigue. And the reason that I voted for this one as the one to start with is that we did a survey of 100 women in midlife and beyond, and we surveyed them on all their symptoms. And I thought, oh, for sure we'll get like hot flashes at the top because it's quite common and it's something that women complain about a lot. But in fact, in our survey, 45% of the women reported low energy and fatigue, and 45% of the women reported sleep disturbances. So this is a big issue. We know that this is an issue in society at large. It's an issue post-COVID and the stresses that we've all been under. But I think it's also further augmented by her hormone changes as well, because what happens is that she's got a more sensitive physiology. So that when the estrogen declines, serotonin declines. She's more stressed and anxious, which we'll talk about. But all of this can lead to low energy and fatigue because her metabolism is also changing. So with that in mind, what do you do for women who have low energy and fatigue? Michelle.
This is a serious problem because low energy stroke fatigue stroke sleep disturbances actually impact two really key things involved in fitness. The first thing is motivation, and the second thing is habits. And believe it or not, the most important thing I believe in my experience as a personal trainer since 2010, so 2010, it's 12 years at the moment, my experience in working with clients is quite clear that creating habits is more important than actually what it is you're doing, almost. Okay, so that habit will be broken quite easily if that person, that client, is constantly tired. That, I like to use this expression, when your get up and go has got up and left. And I work with clients in this perimenopause specifically, and perimenopause catches you out because there's no current test to say, yeah, you're in perimenopause. So you might be thinking, in your late 30s, when do I need to start worrying about this perimenopause? And so the tracking of this lack of energy, this lack of get up and go, this fatigue, where is this happening from? When is this happening? The tracking the symptoms of that are quite important. So even just jotting down a little post-it note somewhere to say, today I just didn't have the energy to do anything. But it's a serious problem, especially through the peri chapter. And I would definitely say the motivation is decreased. The habits are then impacted. And once you're off that habit horse, it's pretty difficult to get back onto it. Creating habits is really tough, okay? I would say that there's a feeling I get from some clients where they hit a fatigue wall. Now, certainly when I was pregnant in the first trimester, and I'm not saying that you need to have a pregnancy to understand peri, but certainly when I was pregnant the first trimester, I experienced this fatigue wall at that time. And I can only relate back to that. I'm 42 at the moment, so whether or not I'm in peri is I don't really know. But I haven't reached that fatigue wall that I certainly felt when I was pregnant. So I've got a compatible, I can compare back to my previous self and say, how did I feel? Do I feel that fatigue wall? Individuals that are listening to this, you'll need to do the same thing. You'll need to measure up and see 2 years ago, 3 years ago, did I have energy? How did I feel then? So that you can try and compare you, because with perimenopause, every single journey is completely different. Fatigue impacts the ability to do something, anything, and also the mental psychology as well. So physically, you feel like you can't do an exercise, or you can't do a movement, or you can't even start. And mentally, that pulls you down a little bit, because that takes you into your questioning zone of, why can't I just do this? Leading to a bit of a vicious, I say circle, a lot of people say cycle, so a vicious cycle or a vicious circle. Why can't I do this? I really want to do this. Tomorrow I'm going to try, or I don't feel like it, next day, etc. As a personal trainer, I would probably say this escalates when the client stops doing anything at all, including walking and gentle walking, okay? Now, the key is to do something little and often, and not to overload the body, because you can't quite work out, am I mentally tired or am I physically tired? You're trying to work out the difference. And here's an easy way to test that. Sometimes when if you worked in an office, if you're sitting at your laptop and you're doing a whole load of work, and at 5 o'clock you're like, okay, I'm going to skip out the door. If you were skipping out the door and someone said, hey, do you want to go for a quick drink after work? If you can turn around and say, yeah, I'm going to have, yeah, God, that sounds like a really good idea, and you're boosted, that suggests to me that you're mentally fatigued. Because once you're out the office environment, you have this new energy and you're like, oh, I got a second wind. Yeah, I'll take that drink and then I'll get the next train. The same thing happens in fitness. Maybe you feel tired, but it's actually mentally tired. So my advice is put your workout clothes on, start the warm-up at least. And if after the warm-up you just are not feeling it, then pull out, do a couple of stretches and you're done. If once you've done the warm-up, which I suspect afterwards you'll be like, okay, I'm going to carry on and do another bit of the workout, that gets you into the zone a little bit, okay? So you're trying to figure out, am I tired mentally, or am I actually tired genuinely? Is my body fatigued? The other thing with this stage in peri is, and I read a really interesting article about sleep not so long ago, and it was really focusing on, do you actually need the prescriptive 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours of sleep, whatever it is that you may have been having before? So we talk about disturbances in sleep, double check. Am I actually getting enough sleep on 7 hours and I feel like I need 8 hours, or is 7 hours my new normal? What is it? So that's something to take in mind as well. And I would say that that's probably the top things that I come across as a PT, this lack of motivation, the breaking of habits, and then it's really tough to try and start up again.
So I really like how you summarize that, because I think one of the things that happens during this time is that there is sometimes it's like an existential fatigue. It's like, if she's not managing her stress very well, or if she just has a whole lot of new stress in her life, then it is kind of existential, mental, and less physical. But I think the other thing that happens, and a lot of women during this time in their lives are kind of an overload. Maybe they have a family, they're working, now their physiology is changing. But I think another piece of this is also that women don't often realize how they need to be gentle with themselves, which is
Yeah.
really what you're saying. Like,
Yeah.
if you are physically tired, it's actually not time to do that cardiovascular workout, because it's just going to increase your stress hormones too much and have the opposite effect. It's
the stress hormone increase, but it's also the prone for injury. Now, when we're talking about the potential of osteoporosis, we're talking about bone health and muscle health. I was listening to a really good podcast, and this podcast was on for about 2.5 hours. And this podcast was talking about nutrition and muscles and bones, etc. And what they were linking was, when you get into this older age, this middle age onwards in the second half of your life, your ability to perhaps fall over, trip over, have a small accident that may cause a lasting damage is much higher. So it's not, again, to press any sort of theme of menopause equals decrepit old women. It's more to just say, if you push through and do that exercise and you are genuinely tired, your likelihood of having an accident and injuring yourself is definitely higher. And so do you want to take that risk? The chances are you don't. So you're absolutely right, that cortisol stress level is some factor to take into account, and also take into the factor into account, do I want to have a potential injury here? And the answer to that is a straight no. You do not want to have an injury. So I always say to clients, if you're genuinely tired, you'll know after doing a warm-up, I'm not feeling this. But some people, after a warm-up, they feel energized, and so they say, yeah, I feel okay. Just like that person after work says, do you want to go for a quick drink? Yeah, I do want to go for a quick drink. I feel I'm just outside the office and I feel much better. So you've just got to try and suss out, is my body genuinely okay here and can do a small workout, or is it not? In all cases, you want to be continuing to keep that habit. So I always suggest walking, and you'd be amazed at how much benefit you get from simply walking, going out the door and walking for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes a day, or each time you go out. It's such an easy thing to do, and it's so good for everything. So that doesn't take too much encouragement to do something like that. And I feel like that would be my suggestion for somebody who is, I'm fatigued, I've never felt this wall before, I don't have the ability to do a workout. Good, then get out and do a walk. Right. Because psychologically, you're okay with that.
Elevate your serotonin, get in some fresh air. But I like this because it's like personalized self-care. It's really being aware of what your real need is. But it also helps me rationalize when I'm going to work out and I decide I'd rather have drinks with friends.
Don't we all? We're all like, yeah, that sounds like a much better idea. And it's also quite tough if you live in a hot country and you don't have like an aircon gym, or you're not an aircon house or whatever it is. When you step outside and it's like 30 degrees outside, and you've got the opportunity to do a walk or a workout, you're going to flip for the walk anytime. You're not going to be sitting there thinking, I think I'll throw out 10 burpees and keep going with my high intensity workout. It's not going to happen. So you've also got to look at, what time have I got? When am I feeling this fatigue? And I think for women at this age, whether you like it or not, you're going to have to start taking an awful lot of notes on yourself all day, every day. How do I feel in the morning? How am I feeling now at lunchtime? How am I feeling in the evening? Because your cycle is changing so much, your menstrual cycle and your hormonal levels are changing so much that there's not a one size fits all. And I think this is what you and I are finding in the menopause space, that what you're doing, which is precision, is the way that the trend is going to go for menopause. You're going to have to go that way, because it is not one thing fits everyone. It just isn't.
Yeah, and I think women they really need that. And so, and maybe we switch to the nutrition topic now, because this is the thing. So now, once you've reflected, why am I tired? Where is the fatigue coming from? Another piece of this is obviously the diet and nutrition piece of the equation. And now the body's more sensitive. Now maybe she can't get away with the same habits that she could get away with in her 30s. Unfortunately, it's a good time to become a bit more self-aware. So when I think of just from the perspective of improving energy, if we start there, the first thing I think of is just really just to remember the plant foods that we have available to us, the many colors of plant foods that represent the huge variety of phytonutrients that all pack, powerful antioxidant impact as well as energy impact, because they're all cofactors in the energy metabolism in your body. And we've got thousands of phytochemical compounds that we eat in the various fruits and vegetables that we have available to us. So an example of a known phytochemical might be a carotenoid, or even which would be found in carrots, or even in berries. We've got other phytonutrients, polyphenols that are very powerful. So that's the first thing I think of, is just to remember that always in her diet, where she can find ways to incorporate more plant foods, she is more likely to feel better. The second, though, are the B vitamins, because the B vitamins are very well known, very well established cofactors in energy metabolism. They actually help you break down your fats, carbohydrates, and your proteins for energy. So you absolutely need them for your Krebs cycle, as an example, and you absolutely need them in order to produce the energy to get through your day. Now, one of the things that happens as we age is that we have this thing called intrinsic factor in our gastrointestinal system, which we use to absorb vitamin B12, and it tends to decrease with age. So that means that there is a risk that she will not be actually absorbing enough B12. And that's certainly something to consider going forward. One of my favorite ways of diagnosing this is actually using a finger stick micronutrient blood test. So we have one here in Switzerland that we're actually going to incorporate in the PhenomX platform. The last time I had done one of these, honestly, it was really hard. Like I had to prick like 5 fingers, and I had a card with like 5 dots, and I had to fill it up, and it was a nightmare. I wasn't very good at it, and I thought, oh God, this is like that. It's better to go, drive to the hospital and have your blood drawn than to do this. But thankfully, technology has improved tremendously, and we can measure a lot of nutrient biomarkers with very tiny amounts of blood. But also, the Lancets have gotten better, and the collection device has gotten better. So I like this as one way that women can actually take a look at their micronutrient profile and see if there are any imbalances that she needs to correct, because she might get surprised by maybe seeing something like a B12 insufficiency is what I call it, not necessarily a deficiency, but enough that, it might be affecting her energy. So then also, when we think about the B vitamins, we have to think about what kind of food sources, and meat, seafood, chicken, eggs, dairy products are all really good sources. You can get some B vitamins from leafy greens. So it's also, a matter of kind of taking a look at her diet and making sure she's balancing her diet throughout the day. Is she getting the protein that she needs? For me, I usually promote a flexitarian diet. So lots of plants, but then you find the right places in the diet to have some meat and protein sources that are not in excess, but really meet all of the amino acid and B vitamin needs. But then I also think of carnitine and CoQ10. Both are known sources of energy balance that help across the cell membranes. Both of them are made in the body already. And both of them, you've got good sources from meats. With CoQ10, you've got oily fish as well as a good source, but you can get CoQ10 from tofu, cauliflower, broccoli as well. People tend to take these as supplements to improve their energy. One of the things that happens in the age, unfortunately, is our capacity to make CoQ10 decreases. So that's another kind of consideration going forward. We don't necessarily measure CoQ10, but you can try making sure she's got some foods high in CoQ10, or even taking a supplement, particularly if you're taking a statin to lower your cholesterol, that actually reduces CoQ10 tremendously. And people have found in the past when they've been taking a statin and they didn't know about this, that they have a lot of muscle fatigue. So this is an important consideration. If you know anyone on a statin, you might suggest that they would check into CoQ10. There's one other point.
Am I right in thinking? Oh, sorry. Yeah, go for it.
No, sorry. So there was one other point I was just going to make, which is just about good sleep. I was going to tell my good sleep story, which is that if you're having a problem with sleep, consider that it could be that you're having a low serotonin issue, which can make you more prone to anxiety, and it can happen as estrogen decreases during your menopause transition time. And what you can do, and I used to recommend this to breastfeeding moms too, whose babies didn't sleep very well, is make sure you've got a good tryptophan source at dinner and a good carb source. So something like chicken and mashed potatoes 2 hours before bedtime is actually perfect, because the chicken is the tryptophan. The tryptophan actually crosses the blood-brain barrier and is converted to serotonin in the brain. And then you've got the carbs from the mashed potatoes to make sure that you really use that tryptophan for what you want it to be used for and not break it down as energy.
Excellent advice.
Yeah.
I like the addition that you're talking about new mums. It's a soft spot, soft area for me. I love the new mum market.
Yes, it's very.
What I would say and ask is, there is a supplement I have taken for a few years on and off, and my belief is that you take it for around about a month, you take a month break, and you take another month. And I just want to put you completely on the hot spot, and you can say immediately, no, I don't know. What is your feedback on maca? So I take maca in powder form. I stir it into my coffee in the morning. I read a lot of good things, but obviously, as we both know, there's quite a lot of things that are not tested. So we can't say for sure that it's good for menopause. We can't say it's good for, we can say nothing really, because nothing's been tested. So it's not tested and there's not 10 clinical trials, and it's really hard to promote something as a benefit. But I don't hear anything bad about it. And I personally use it and think, yeah, this is good. So
what do you use it for?
Maca I use for, well, they say it's for hormones. They say it's for hormonal balance. They say it's for energy. They say it's for a bit of get up and go. And so I started taking it probably about 3-4 years ago when I lived in Vancouver in powder form, just because there was a health shop next to my apartment. And she said, "Have you ever tried maca?" I said, "No, I haven't actually." And she said, "Oh, it tastes really nice." And I said, "That's great, I'm going to try it." And she said, "You do 1 month on, 1 month off, so your body doesn't become used to it, and then see how it goes." And I really like it. My hair always feels really good on it. My nails are nice and strong and growing well. And I did a bit of research into it, and it seems to be something that is suggested in the menopause space. But I just want to make it really crystal clear. I know that there's not enough scientific research done in it, just in case anybody's.
And first of all, my approach with nutrition is, I think, somewhat similar to yours, which is I do no harm philosophy. So really, if it's not going to do me any harm, and maca is, if I understand correctly, is a root vegetable. It's like a starchy root vegetable. Yes. So it's not going to do any harm. Yes. First of all, you're just putting you're having a starchy root vegetable for breakfast. It's probably going to give you some carbs, some energy, some fiber, and maybe it's also helping to balance your hormones. And I have also heard that about maca and helping hot flashes. So it was actually highly recommended to me because I am frankly the queen of hot flashes and have had them for some years. So I've tried a lot of different things. Yeah. And so I did try maca for my hot flashes. Frankly, it didn't help those. Yeah. Okay. For me personally. But I think it's a great thing to try because it really is a benign food, and we're all different. We're all unique. And so the fact that it didn't work for me doesn't necessarily mean it wouldn't work for you. And it seems like it's available in powder form, and you can even find it in liquid form. I don't know if you've seen that.
You get it in tablet form as well, so it's easier to take if you don't like the taste. I quite like it. I don't mind the taste. It's a kind of I would say a kind of nutty, mushroomy type taste, but Yeah, I thought I would ask whilst we were talking about nutrition there, I thought actually this is a good chance to just put you completely on the spot.
But you know what? And I think it's quite fun to learn what the experts do. So I will
Yeah.
reveal this, and then we can move on in the conversation. But I use collagen in my coffee every morning.
Mm.
Mhm.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
He takes notes.
And you don't need a big dose of it. So originally the studies suggested, I think, a bit more than what we're seeing now. So you really only need like 1 to 2 grams of collagen. So I don't take too much, because I always feel like with any of these things, more is not always more. And the fact that I'm consistently doing it every day,
No.
and it takes a while to see an effect. So you need at least a month to see an effect. And
Yeah.
it's interesting, you say with the maca, you can see it like with your hair and nails. Definitely with the collagen, hair and nails, very strong.
Okay.
And so I would like to think it's decreasing my wrinkle depth and protecting my joints and bones, but I definitely know that it's improving my hair and nails. And there's actually lots of research on collagen. So
yeah, I'm gonna check it out. Good.
So let's move on to glucose metabolism. Should we do that?
Yeah, let's do this one.
Okay, so unfortunately, estrogen declines. When estrogen declines, carbohydrate metabolism is affected. Honestly, I never appreciated how much estrogen was behind my great carbohydrate metabolism until it decreased. But really looking at the scientific literature, you really see a very strong connection there. So this is of no surprise. And so women are at risk of developing higher blood sugars and insulin resistance during this time, because, and then ultimately diabetes. And so it's quite important to be aware of this if you have a history in your family, or if you have, certain lifestyle habits that might put you at risk. So let's talk about the fitness side of this.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one, because when you hear in the media, and we hear it so often now that sometimes we don't listen carefully, or we hear it and we don't quite understand. And that is, exercise is good for the prevention of type 2 diabetes. And maybe we don't understand how, and this is actually how. This is the section that we're dealing with here. So some information from my side. What we know is that a combination of aerobic exercise, which could be, if you think of anything that gets your heart and lungs moving, so your heart rate up and your lungs really working hard to keep you breathing, that would be the easiest way to think about what aerobic exercise is. So dancing, swimming, water aerobics, biking, walking, hiking, climbing steps, things like that. Low impact dance classes could be included. So you've got an idea of what it is. In combination with resistance exercises, so push-ups, squats, something you're resisting against, deadlifts, lifting weights at the gym. These help and assist any of our clients to maintain a balance or a strong metabolism. So the body's reaction to peaks and dips of this blood sugar level, are being much less unpredictable. So what we're trying to say is, we're trying to work out how much working out do you do, what's your muscle requiring to do and to use from your body's intake of certain energy. So your food intake would be your energy. How is the body using that? How is the glucose level in your body? How is that working to help you to complete that workout? And from that, how far can you go? How long can you go with the stores of glucose that you have in your body to do these types of workouts? So if you're not fueling your body correctly, you physically won't be able to do the workout. You physically won't be able to lift the weights, or you'll be able to lift the weights, but not heavy weights. You won't be able to go to fatigue. You won't be able to push the boundaries so that you're getting that muscle repair, which is what resistance training is. The muscle fibers break away and then join again, break away, then reform again to give you that muscle strength. Muscle mass decreases as we age. Bone density also decreases as we age. So we're trying to work on these two known facts in conjunction with what your body intakes in to push out. How do we then complete that workout? So glucose metabolism is really important. And I think for female clients, the weight bearing exercises are perhaps something that she has maybe avoided in the past. So she hasn't gone into the weight section of the gym. So maybe she's not aware of the correlation between what I'm taking in and how that is going to work through my muscles, and how that's going to actually help complete a workout, to increase the amount of weights that I'm lifting, to increase and improve my muscle mass, or the reduction you're trying to decrease. So that's the bit where we're talking about type 2 diabetes, and chief medical officers talk about it all the time. This is where it comes from. I would also probably say this is a good chance when I'm speaking to PT clients, that we talk about the GI. I do say diet in inverted commas when we're talking about the glycemic index. And we're talking about foods that are quick rush into your body to give you immediate energy, and foods that don't give you immediate energy. I wrote a book for new mums for Ultimate Fitness, and this part, I included this part in it just so they had an understanding, because sometimes you will speak to clients where they say, I need something sugary immediately, because they feel their own body, they would describe blood sugar levels dropping, and they need something in them immediate. And usually you think about runners in a marathon, or you think about anybody biking, they have these little gel pack pouches that they just take, and it's almost like pure honey that they're taking in to give immediate sugar, so that they've got that energy back again as much as they can. So it's critically important, I think, the link of understanding this and what workouts you're doing, and remembering that the workouts that you're doing going into your perimenopause age range should be changing. You should be doing resistance training, you should be doing weight bearing exercises, and maybe you've never done that before. If you've been a Zumba person, if you've been a aerobics person, if you've been a walking person and you've never done weights before, take this as the call. You're going to have to do weights. You're going to have to start. Okay. So when you change that training methodology, your body's going to react. And if you're not intaking the right fuel to fuel that muscle and bone, you're going to fail. So that's how I would sum that up. What do you think?
Yeah, and so that it's interesting that you say that. And one of the interesting things I just read actually just the other day, which was encouraging to me, because I was trying to look at, how does exercise help improve insulin metabolism, because she develops this insulin resistance. So she's making too much insulin for the her blood sugar, for the glucose she actually takes in from her diet, and then she can get hypoglycemia as well from that. But that excess insulin can also cause fat deposition. And then when she gets fatter, she ends up with more blood sugar control issues. It's like this vicious cycle. So it's interesting to read that the glycogen that you store in your muscle in the form, that's the glucose that you store in the muscle in the form of energy. The more you mobilize and use that, actually, the more insulin sensitive the body becomes.
Yeah.
So that's just another reason why she should be altering and evolving her exercises, so that she's really mobilizing this glycogen, using it for energy, and then she fuels with a nice healthy diet.
And my understanding is there's around about 2 hours worth of exercise available of glycogen stores in the muscle. There's around about 2 hours. Now, obviously, that depends on what workout you're doing, how vigorous it is, how intense it is. If you're doing something that is sudden power, so if you're doing plyometric jumping, if you're lifting, weightlifting, phenomenal weights, obviously that's going to drop much quicker. But around about 2 hours. So you yourself, if you think about it, or if you're doing a workout, you might get through that workout no problem and not realize that you actually should have taken in a different form of nutrition 60, 90 minutes before your workout than you did. You might get through that workout and think, I feel totally fine. And then all of a sudden, you then start to feel the drop, because actually you didn't build up any stored pre-workout. So if that 2 hour guide is kind of accurate, and we always see this, we always caveat, it's 28-day cycle, it might be peri, blah, blah. That's not going to be for everyone, but depending on what workout you're about to do, you have to be thinking a little bit further ahead and say, okay, 60 to 90 minutes before, depending on your digestion and how quickly you digest food, what kind of snack do I need so I'm ready to power through whatever that workout is? So at the end of that workout, you're not in a position of going, I need something and I need it now, and I need that sugar in. And just to be completely blunt, this happened to me 2 weeks ago. I had to call my son when I was out on a run, and I called him and I said, bring my purse, meet me at this specific point, and I had to go straight into the shop and buy a can of Coke. Now I'm a personal trainer, I'm not sitting there drinking Coke. That's what I had to do, because I just felt everything just dropping, and I felt perfectly fine before I went out. So experts, we get caught out too. This is
we're learning.
We get caught out. Absolutely. So just to let an FYI, you can get caught quite easily on this.
So I'm going to add to that actually, because that's such an interesting story. So we're experimenting here at the PhenomX Health Headquarters, experimenting with continuous glucose monitoring devices. And, I don't know if you've used one of these. It's a circular device, and you put it on the back of your arm, and it actually does have a needle in it, but it's a very, very skinny needle. You don't feel it. And so you get a device, you stick it on your arm, you can keep it there for 2 weeks, and it monitors your glucose in your interstitial fluid throughout the day. And so I said, okay, let's try this. I'm going to be the first to try it, because I want to see if it's easy enough to integrate into a digital platform and learn about your diet intake, right? And oh my gosh, I got to tell you, this was life-changing for me.
Fascinating when you start to monitor things.
Yes. And so interstitial fluid, okay, there's maybe a little bit of a time delay. So you're not getting like immediate, but it's close enough for me. And so I was amazed to see things like how much timing mattered. Okay, like you're talking about timing of eating and preparation, and you have to have adequate glycogen stores to begin with, and etc. But how much timing mattered. And then also I actually saw which carbs that I like to eat seem to have more of an impact than others. So for example, I love to have a banana and a tablespoon of cashew butter in the morning for breakfast. Oh my gosh, my blood sugar spikes all the way to the top, the very top. So even though we're not even talking about diabetes where you're outside the range, it spikes at the very, very top of the range. And then it's a fall. And even I can go hypoglycemic. But if I have a half a banana and some cashews instead of my cashew butter and an egg, I'm fine. I get a nice small increase showing that I'm putting some sugar in my blood. That's fine. And then I gradually take care of it over time, and I feel fine.
But this is why it's important to monitor. When I'm speaking to a PT client, is to monitor the nutrition. And initially what we do when we're talking, I work with that client and say, okay, we're going to embed this fitness routine first. And as soon as I feel like that's kind of in a nice flow, we then start to bring in, okay, now what are you consuming food-wise? Because I keep it really simple and say the food you're consuming is energy. So I just want to know what energy you're taking in, because as we progress in fitness, you're going to need more of that energy in. Petrol into a car, need more petrol into the car to do a longer distance, or a more powerful car, or if you want to go drag racing. It's simple, it's quite clear what you're going to have to do here. So exactly what you're saying, we have to play around with, okay, what works best.
Right, and what works what are you sensitive to? Like that day that you ran out of blood sugar, you ran out of your glycogen stores, like what is it that happened earlier that day, the day before, that created that situation? Because that mattered a lot to you. It might not even matter to my physiology, but it matters to your physiology.
Exactly that. And I'm not tracking my daily food intake, so I wouldn't be able to tell you, but I just know that when I was sitting on that bench and I kind of thought, I know for a fact, and this is a really important point, if you do find yourself in this bit where you feel like your blood sugar level has just plummeted, it's not going to recover by taking time out and sitting on a bench. Because I was sitting there thinking, can I get myself home? And I realized, no, I'm going to end up walking to the next bench and sitting for 10 minutes, the next bench and sitting for 15. It's going to take me 2 hours to get home, and all of it, it's getting worse. You're putting yourself in a worse position. So I mean, I definitely don't recommend to my clients, to drink cans of Coke, but I demolished as soon as my son arrived, there was a shop. I stayed next to a shop on purpose, and I called him and said, "You need to come now." He's 11. He made his way straight to me, and I got that, and I felt fine 4 minutes later, 5 minutes later, because it's pure sugar almost going into your system. But
Sure.
it's, don't be frightened by that if that happens. Just you need to take note and to be like, okay, exactly what you've said. What happened earlier today? Is there something that I didn't eat and prep correctly for this, and what was it? And then you need to then start to monitor that going forward. So
I'm going to just bridge this right into kind of the weight change things, because what happens in glucose metabolism when it goes awry is that you've got this hyperinsulinemia that creates a situation of fatty acid deposition in the body. And these are the women that are, at least some of them, that are complaining that they're gaining weight, and maybe they're not doing anything different, but maybe there was some maybe not so good habits that seemed to work in her metabolism before, but they don't work anymore. And this is also when she starts getting increasing her weight around the middle, which we know increases risk of cardiovascular disease and diabetes as well. And this can be very frustrating because now clothes aren't fitting right. The distribution of fat is different. So like maybe even like different style clothing that you can wear, is important. And it's not very comfortable, for a lot of women when they're really putting on that central fat. And so I'm wondering if you have any comments on that piece, like from a fitness perspective.
Yeah. I only have a few comments on this, so this will be quite quick from my side. Normally when that happens, and it's interesting, I have some clients like that where there is this sudden, they have like a bad vibe about themselves. So they look in the mirror and they say, I just don't recognize this body anymore, but maybe they're actually still fitting into the clothes that they have. But just like you said, the fat is moving around a bit, and they're maybe thinking, my thighs feel thicker. I don't know where this came from. When I'm walking, my thighs are now chafing and it feels really uncomfortable. When did this start? It just seems to have happened gradually. We're in a really unfortunate time today because we are not quite 100% sure if it's a result of COVID and the restrictions and the changes in lifestyle during that particular 2-year pandemic, or if this is actually how your body is changing. Now, what I mean by that is so many people's fitness and exercise habits changed over the last 2 years that naturally their body shape changed as well. They maybe aren't as fit as they are before. The muscle definition isn't there. The muscle tone isn't there. If that time period happened to fall in line with the perimenopause stereotypical age range, bad luck. And that's, to me, that's the same as me. 40 to 42, we're in pandemic, a lot of things changed. So I think we need to wait maybe another year in terms to see if society is balancing that out a little bit. If not, and you're maybe at this age 49, and since 43 you've noticed this, then the pandemic's got nothing to do with it. It's genuinely changes to your body, changes to your body shape.
Right.
Exercising, toning and lengthening muscles are always the way to change the muscle definition. Weight-bearing exercises can make the muscles look bulkier and bigger at times, depending on what you're doing. Muscle toning and lengthening exercises, so Pilates and yoga, come into play and are extremely popular with women into the perimenopause to postmenopause age range. One, they're body weight bearing, and the second thing is there's quite a lot of calming effect with that. They're toning, there's stretching, so there's a lot of mind-body balance going on there. So that's what I would say with that. The weight change part of it, normally when as a PT, I would be saying that is down to the nutrition factor. The muscle definition is down to the exercise factor. But if you're struggling to work out where you sit at the moment and you're in that very early perimenopause age range, it could have been the impact of COVID. So I just want to add that in to give people a little bit of a, okay, thanks.
No, I mean, it's such a good analysis, actually, because I think a lot of us no matter where we are in our stage of life and what gender we are, have gone through this change because we haven't been, maybe not going outside as much, not moving as much in general. And, I think it's been hard for a lot of people to maintain their body weight.
There's also that simple thing as well of what are you wearing? Because I know that in the last 2 years, I've been wearing loose, lycra, stretchy clothing, not structured clothing. So if I go and put on structured clothing now, like a structured pair of trousers, a blazer, things like that, then I'm noticing, oh, hang on a second, things have shifted and moved here. If I've been wearing almost athleisure wear for 2 years because I've been working from home or I've been far more flexible work conditions, whatever it is, you might not have noticed any changes to your body shape, particularly until now, because you've not been wearing those styles of clothing. So there's a lot in there,
you know. When you're wearing your jammy pants on your Zoom calls, anything goes.
I wear sports clothes all the time, honestly. So when I go to my wardrobe and try and find an outfit to wear just in a Saturday shopping, I'm like, what am I wearing? I have paralysis now.
I think a lot of women and people have been going through this, because you can wear the suit jacket on top and jammy pants on the bottom, and it's just the best, Well, I wanted just to add to that from the nutrition perspective here. What I have found so far that really, really helps with that, like not so kind weight gain, whether it's COVID or perimenopause or both. And that, kind of changes in glucose tolerance as well. So kind of those two things together is this idea of intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
And in fact, I'll tell you, I experimented with my glucose monitor, and I saw, for me, actually, by shortening my period of eating, I had a nice prolonged period of very, very calm glucose control through evening and overnight. That looked much better than when I was eating throughout the day. So I'm just going to review. There's so many different approaches to it. I think the most important aspect of this goes back to your and my discussion about how our physiologies are different. So it's important for her to experiment with what works best for her, because sometimes these things can even worsen some of her symptoms. So I can give an example of that as well. But first of all, we have the very simple idea of fasting for a day. So some people really, they claim they feel really good if they just fast for 24 hours, do a water fast, and then go back to eating. And it resets their mind. It shifts their appreciation of how they're eating their food and what their food choices are. And they're appreciating better the taste of food because they've really given their whole gastrointestinal system a break. So there's one way to do this. And it also gives your metabolic system a break. Another approach that a lot of people are using successfully is the time restricted eating, where you can go for, you pick a certain period of time that you're fasting for. So usually it's fasting for 12 hours or more. It depends on what kind of eating window you can actually tolerate. So for example, I historically would do an intermittent fast where I just wouldn't eat dinner. So I would have my breakfast around 8. I would stop eating by 4. So that would be, I was eating in an 8-hour period. So that leaves 16 hours, right? That I would have been fasting. But personally, I found that when I have a lot of stress, I will get heart palpitations if that fast is 16 hours. I actually have to have a shorter fast because when we're under stress, we're using more blood sugar. And when we're using more of our blood sugars, we actually can increase our risk of physiological stress. And one of those symptoms is the heart palpitations. So that I make that point because we're also physiologically different. We have to kind of play around with this. But even taking that break, having a certain window of break from eating, you're really giving your metabolism a rest. Yes, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, if you were suggesting to anyone listening to this, how long they should give each concept a go. So for me, I like to say at least you have to try something for at least a month. Would you say that that's reasonable? So if you were saying to someone, try the whatever fasting, and give them a time, the 16/8, for example, would you say to them, you need to really give this a go for at least 1 month, and especially for females who have some sort of menstrual cycle. We've already said 28 days is stereotypical, but it at least takes that female through that complete cycle.
Yeah. So
what do you think? What do you normally suggest?
So a couple of thoughts on that. First of all, I might even start with a shorter fast, maybe a 14-hour fast or just a 12-hour fast. And I would work up to, let's say it's something like a 16 or 18-hour fast. And so she could do that for a few days before she increases the length of her fast. And that way she can see like what her body can tolerate at that given time that she's doing this. So that's the first recommendation I would have for that. So you can gradually move into it to make sure it actually suits you okay. And the second part of that answer is absolutely yes. A month for anything nutritional that you're trying, as long as you're not having negative side effects, you really need a month to really see the benefit. And if you can journal it or in any way, or in our PhenomX app, when we release it, you can track your symptoms, at the beginning of the month and at the end, so you can really see what has changed for you. I think that can really help to motivate someone to continue with this. The other thing I was going to say for women that still have their period is how important that month is, and how that everything she does that month is going to affect her next cycle. So I like that rule of thumb. Totally agree with that.
That's great.
There are other aspects of intermittent fasting, like the 5-2 diet, where she eats for 5 days and then fasts for 2. Maybe it's the weekend, maybe it's a couple of low stress days that she can fast for. And those days she would maybe eat like 500 calories a day. And then, of course, the fasting every other day is another option to that. But I think the important thing is to create that awareness and for her to create something that really works well for her. So I have a proposal. My proposal is that we end this podcast and we do, which we had talked about maybe we would do, and we do a second podcast because we've got a lot of amazing topics that we still want to discuss. And I think if we make this podcast too long, our listeners will finish their walk and not listen to the rest of it and not ever get back to it.
That's it. And also, this is quite a lot of information for people to digest, and excuse the pun, because it's fine for experts who are dealing with this day in, day out to quickly talk about terminology, words, etc. But you know yourself that when you hear something new for the first time, you want to maybe pause something, take a quick check, do a Google search, do a little bit of research yourself. So I think this is a good time to take a pause. And if you could imagine if this was a book, everyone, and just think that this is your reflection period and just a couple of pages just to reflect on what we've both said, and just to try and think through your own lives and say, how does that relate to my life? And I have more questions about that. How am I going to then deep dive? Because it's up to us to do our homework as well, I guess.
Yeah. And it's like, what are your top 3 things that you can take away from this, that you think you can change, that you can try in your life, that you think will make your life healthier, will, what fits into your personal goals, what ideas are easy enough to follow, I would say. I'd be interested to know as well. So I have to say thank you, because this is actually my first time working with someone really strongly coming from the fitness perspective and the personal training perspective. And I could talk to you for hours.
Thank you so much. I'm not joking. I'm going to send you this other podcast that I listen to, and the episodes go on for 2.5 hours at a time. And it's one of these things where I really start to appreciate it as a deep dive into the subject. So I don't listen to it in one go. I listen 30 minutes at a time. And I have to say, I find it fantastic. So maybe, people listening to this will see this as a bit like, you're at school, you're at a subject and you're listening and you're taking notes. This has been really good fun. I've really enjoyed it. And I've learned a lot because obviously as a personal trainer, we know enough about nutrition to, some of us are qualified nutritionists as well, but some of us aren't, and we know enough to talk about nutrition with our clients, but it's good to get an expert on the other side who can add significant impact into what we are suggesting for our clients. So
It's fantastic.
a lot of love in the room.
I mean, we're combining practical reality with
Yeah.
some physiology, you know, we're putting them in the same place. So I love it. So I'm just going to say to everyone, thank you for joining us on this PhenomX and ViviRocks Healthcast. I am Dr. Colleen Fogarty Draper, and I have been joined by Michelle Caira from ViviRocks, wishing you all the best in health.